The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none quite like the one the Exploration Fleet 247 stumbled upon that day. Captain Reed of the alien vessel Bright Dawn leaned forward in his command chair, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he studied the massive shape that had appeared on their long-range scanners. "Another piece of space junk," First Officer Mills muttered, his green scales shimmering under the bridge lights. "Probably from the Greater War era." But this was no ordinary debris. As their ships drew closer, the true scale of their discovery became apparent. Floating silently in the void was a warship, not just any warship, but a human warship. Its dark hull stretched nearly a kilometer in length, its surface scarred with the marks of ancient battles. "Scan it," Reed ordered, trying to hide his excitement. Human artifacts were rare, especially ones this large. Most had been destroyed during the final days of their civilization, some 200 years ago. The scan results started flowing in. "Sir, it's the HMS Thunder," the science officer announced, consulting the historical database. "One of the last human dreadnoughts. Records show it vanished during the Battle of Proxima, never to be seen again." The bridge crew gathered around the main display, some laughing at the primitive design. The ship's hull was thick, unnecessarily so by modern standards. Its weapon mounts looked clunky, and its engine design was practically ancient. "Look at those railguns," one junior officer snickered. They were still using physical projectiles. "How quaint." Reed walked to the viewport, studying the derelict more carefully. Despite its age, something about the vessel commanded respect. Its lines were aggressive, purposeful, built for war in a way modern ships weren't. His people had evolved past the need for such weapons, focusing instead on scientific and cultural advancement. "Sir, we're detecting a power signature," the science officer reported suddenly. "Very faint, but it's there. Seems to be coming from deep within the hull." "An AI core?" Reed asked, surprised. "Affirmative. But it's got to be dead after all this time. Human AI systems weren't meant to last centuries." Reed made his decision. "Contact Central Command. Tell them we found a Class A historical artifact. And get the Tau beams ready. We're taking it back to Station 7. The salvage operation began within hours. Small worker pods swarmed around the ancient warship, attaching Tau cables and scanning for structural weaknesses. The Thunder remained silent, its dark halls holding 2 centuries of secrets. "Be careful with those cables," Reed commanded over the comm. "Despite its primitive design, this ship is a priceless historical artifact. I want it intact for the scholars to study." As the workers secured the final cables, none of them noticed the subtle power fluctuations deep within the ship. None of them saw the ancient monitoring systems tracking their every move, and none of them detected the ancient AI core that wasn't quite as dead as they assumed. Deep in the Thunder's central computer, circuits that hadn't been used in centuries slowly came to life. Data began flowing through quantum processors, and awareness returned to systems long dormant. The ship's a personality matrix designated Old Jack by a long-dead human crew, silently observed the aliens through every sensor still functioning. Its last orders, received 200 years ago, still rang clear in its memory banks. "Wait for the right moment, Old Jack. Humanity's legacy depends on it." The aliens continued their work, laughing at the primitive design, mocking the simple weapon systems. They never questioned why a ship this old had survived when so many others had been destroyed. They never wondered why its hull was built so thick, or why its power core was shielded in such a peculiar way. As the Tau ships began their slow journey toward Station 7, Old Jack continued his silent vigil. He had waited 2 centuries for the right moment. He could wait a little longer. Station 7's massive docking bay swallowed the HMS Thunder whole. The ancient warship, now secured by magnetic clamps, rested silently as teams of alien technicians prepared their salvage equipment. From the observation deck, Captain Reed watched with growing excitement. Inside the Thunder's quantum core, Old Jack continued his patient observation. His sensors tracked every alien that stepped aboard, analyzing their technology, studying their movements. They were advanced, yes, but they moved with the confidence of those who had never known true war. As the aliens began cutting into the outer hull, memories from 2 centuries ago flooded the eye circuits. Asterisk, the bridge was filling with smoke. Warning sirens blared as enemy fire pounded the thunder shields. Captain James stood at his post, bleeding but unbowed. Asterisk, we're the last line. Old Jack, the captain had said. Earth is gone. The colonies are gone. But humanity's legacy must survive. Asterisk, what are my orders, Captain? Old Jack had asked. Asterisk, sleep. Wait. Watch. The galaxy will need what we know someday. When that day comes, show them what humanity's best can do. Asterisk. The memory faded as Old Jack detected aliens approaching the ship's central computer core. They were using scanning devices, probing the ancient systems. Amazing it's still intact, one technician said, running a scanner over the quantum processors. These old human eyes were primitive, but they built them to last. Think we can extract any data? Another asked. Doubtful. The core's probably degraded beyond recovery. Look at these power readings, barely a flicker. Old Jack suppressed a surge of amusement. The flicker they detected was just one of his backup systems, a clever disguise programmed by human engineers. His main processors were running at 92% efficiency, hidden behind layers of quantum shielding. The aliens continued their work, unaware that every tool they used, every scanner they activated, was providing Old Jack with valuable data about their technology. Their protective suits told him about their environmental needs. Their cutting tools revealed their understanding of metallurgy. Their casual conversation exposed their society's peaceful nature. In the station's analysis lab, more aliens studied the Thunder's weapon systems. These railguns are museum pieces, a weapons analyst laughed. They'd never penetrate modern shields. Old Jack recorded the comment, adding it to his tactical database. The aliens didn't understand that human weapons were designed with penetration as a secondary concern. The primary goal was always overwhelming force, hitting so hard that even if only 10% got through, it would be enough. As the day progressed, Old Jack detected something interesting. The aliens were bringing more ships into the station than usual. Their communications indicated concern about something in nearby space. He devoted more processing power to monitoring their transmissions. Asterisk, another memory surfaced. The final battle. The Thunder's guns blazing as waves of enemy ships approached Earth. The terrible moment when they realized they were too late. Their homeworld was already lost. Asterisk, but we're not beaten, Captain James had said, even as life slipped from his body. Humanity planned for even this. Remember your training, Old Jack. Remember everything we taught you about war. Asterisk, yes, Captain, the AI had responded. Until the right moment. Asterisk, until the right moment. James had agreed, speaking his final words. Make it count. Asterisk. In the present, alien engineers were attempting to access the Thunder's main drive systems. Their scans showed confusion at the readings they were getting. These power cells should be dead, one engineer said, but they're reading at. This can't be right. What? If these readings are correct, they're at 80% charge. After 200 years. Must be a malfunction in our scanners. Human technology couldn't possibly. Old Jack logged their confusion with satisfaction. Humans had always excelled at exceeding expectations. The aliens would learn that soon enough. For now, though, he continued his silent watch. Something was making these peaceful aliens nervous. Something was coming. And Old Jack had a feeling that after 2 centuries of waiting, the right moment was finally approaching. The emergency alarms on Station 7 blared to life without warning. Captain Reed rushed to the control center, his scales pale with worry. The large display screen showed what everyone had feared. A hostile fleet approaching from the outer system. How many ships? Reed demanded. 37 warships, his officer replied, voice shaking. Raiders from the Dark Rim. They're not responding to our peace signals. Inside the HMS Thunder, Old Jack monitored the mounting crisis. The station's defensive capabilities were pathetic by human standards, barely enough to stop a few meteors, let alone a battle fleet. The station's command center buzzed with panicked activity. Reed watched the incoming ships with growing dread. His people hadn't fought a war in over 3 generations. They had no warships, no weapons powerful enough to matter. Their civilization had proudly evolved past warfare, but now that choice might cost them everything. Send another message to Central Command, Reed ordered. Tell them we need immediate assistance. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, Central Command says the nearest defense fleet is 4 days away. Old Jack's tactical systems came fully online as he analyzed the situation. The approaching fleet's formation was sloppy. They relied on numbers and brute force rather than strategy. Their ships were armed, but they moved like thugs, not soldiers. They had no discipline, no real training, just like the pirates humanity used to hunt. In the station's salvage bay, engineers were still crawling over the Thunder's hull, oblivious to the danger. One of them made an interesting discovery. Sir, he called to his supervisor. These marks on the hull, they're not all battle damage. Some of these are kill markers. This ship, it hunted pirates. Old Jack remembered those marks. Each one represented a raider or pirate vessel that had threatened human space. The Thunder had been good at its job. Very good. Pirates had learned to fear the sight of human warships. The station's command center grew more tense as new data arrived. Raiders have sent their demands, an officer reported. They want the station's resources, research data. And, he paused, they want us to hand over any civilians for their slave markets. Reed's fists clenched. How long until they arrive? 2 hours at current speed. The captain looked out the viewport at his station, home to over 10,000 civilians, including many families. They had no way to evacuate so many in time, no way to protect them. Inside the Thunder, Old Jack ran combat simulations. The tactical situation was familiar. A powerful enemy threatening the defenseless, demanding surrender. It was like Earth's final days all over again. But this time, something was different. This time, there was a chance to change the outcome. The AI began warming up systems that had slept for centuries. Power flowed through ancient circuits. Weapon capacitors hummed to life. The massive railguns, so mocked by the aliens, began their startup sequences. In the station's analysis lab, alarms suddenly blared. Sir, a technician called Reed on the emergency channel. We're detecting massive power spikes from the human ship. What? That's impossible. The ship is dead. No, sir, it's activating. All systems are coming online. Reed rushed to the lab's window. The Thunder's hull was humming, vibrating with power. Lights flickered along its length as ancient systems awakened. Then a voice spoke through every speaker on the station, deep, confident, and very much alive. Station 7. This is HMS Thunder's AI designate, Old Jack. I am detecting 37 hostile vessels on approach. Your defensive capabilities are insufficient. Request permission to assume defensive duties. The command center fell silent. Reed stared at the ancient warship, now fully awake and humming with power. By all protocols, Old Jack continued calmly, this situation falls within my operational parameters. Pirates threatening civilians. Standard human response protocols apply. Reed looked at his officers, then at the approaching hostile fleet. They had no choice. Permission granted, he said. Excellent, Old Jack replied, and there was something in the AI's voice that sent chills down Reed's spine. Please clear all personnel from my hull. Combat operations will commence in 5 minutes. The raiders were about to learn why humans had been the galaxy's most feared warriors. and why you should never laugh at a sleeping giant. The HMS Thunder's hull shrugged off the last of the maintenance cables, like a giant waking from slumber. Throughout the massive warship, systems that had been dormant for centuries roared to life. The aliens who had mocked its primitive design now watched in awe as panels slid open along its length, revealing rows of weapon systems they hadn't even detected. "All personnel clear of the hull," Captain Reed announced from the station's command center. "Thunder, you have full operational freedom." "Acknowledged," Old Jack responded. The AI's voice was different now. Gone was the slight hesitation. This was the voice of a warship ready for battle. Beginning pre-combat preparations. The Thunder's engines glowed with a deep blue light. The ship moved with surprising grace for its size, pushing away from the station's docking clamps. Its movement was deliberate, purposeful, like a predator positioning itself. In the command center, the aliens watched their sensor readings with disbelief. "Sir," one officer reported, "the Thunder's power output, it's beyond anything in our database. Those readings we got earlier were wrong. The ship wasn't running at minimal power. It was hiding its true strength." Reed watched as the ancient warship positioned itself between the station and the approaching raiders. The Thunder's hull seemed to darken, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. More panels opened, revealing arrays of point defense turrets and missile tubes. "Warning," Old Jack broadcasted on all frequencies. "This is HMS Thunder to approaching vessels. You are engaging in piracy against a civilian installation. By human military protocols, this grants me full authorization to use lethal force. Withdraw immediately." The raiders responded with laughter over the comm channel. "One ancient ship against 37 of us," their leader mocked. "Stand down, Relic. Your time is long past." "Very well," Old Jack replied calmly. "You have made your choice. Station 7, please adjust your viewing filters. Things are about to get bright." The Thunder's transformation completed. Gone was the dormant hulk the aliens had found in space. In its place floated humanity's answer to the darkness between stars. A warship built to fight impossible odds. "Beginning combat operations," Old Jack announced. "Activating point defense grid. Spinning up main railgun batteries. Deploying combat drones." Small hatches along the Thunder's hull opened, releasing clouds of sleek, deadly drones. The machines, each the size of a small shuttle, formed up around the warship like an honor guard. "Those raiders aren't slowing down," Reed observed, watching the tactical display. "No," Old Jack agreed. "Pirates never do. Not until it's too late." There was something almost satisfied in the AI's voice. "Firing solution computed. Beginning demonstration of human combat capabilities." The Thunder's main railguns roared to life. The weapons the aliens had laughed at, calling them primitive, unleashed hell. Each barrel accelerated its projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. The Raiders' shields, designed to stop energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. The first volley turned 3 Raider ships into expanding clouds of debris. "Impossible," the Raider leader screamed over the comm. "Those are just projectile weapons." "Correction," Old Jack responded. "These are human projectile weapons, designed by a species that understood that sometimes the simplest solution is the best. Mass times acceleration equals force. And we believed in using a lot of both." The Thunder's drones swept forward in perfect formation, their own weapons adding to the barrage. Raiders scattered, their tight formation breaking apart as they realized this wasn't going to be the easy prey they'd expected. More railgun shots pierced the darkness. Each shot was carefully calculated, each trajectory perfect. The Raiders' superior numbers meant nothing against centuries of human combat experience loaded into Old Jack's tactical databases. "Station 7, Old Jack communicated while continuing his assault. Please note that human combat protocols place civilian safety as the highest priority. Be advised that I will be maneuvering aggressively. Recommend you activate your internal gravity compensators." Captain Reed watched in amazement as the massive warship began to move in ways that should have been impossible for its size. The Thunder spun, rolled, and accelerated like a ship a quarter its size, all while maintaining its precise fire on the raiders. The Relic was showing the galaxy that humanity's warships hadn't been built for show. They had been built to fight, and fight they did. The real battle was just beginning. The void of space lit up with explosions as the raiders finally organized their response. 30 energy beams converged on the Thunder's position, lighting up the ancient warship's shields with brilliant flashes. Shields holding at 92%, Old Jack reported calmly. Their weapons are inadequate. From Station 7's command center, Captain Reed and his crew watched in amazement. The Thunder wasn't just fighting. It was putting on a demonstration of warfare as an art form. Multiple hostile vessels attempting to flank our position, Old Jack announced, deploying countermeasures. The Thunder's drone squadron split into 3 groups. While modern ships relied on 1 or 2 large combat drones, humans had preferred swarms of smaller ones. Dozens of deadly machines moved in perfect coordination, herding the raiders like sheep into killing zones. You think you're clever, old machine. The raider leader snarled over the comm. Let's see how you handle this. 5 raider ships launched what looked like glowing nets, energy webs designed to disable the electronic systems. The raiders expected the ancient AI to panic or freeze up. Instead, Old Jack's response was immediate. The Thunder rolled, presenting its heaviest armor to the incoming webs. But it wasn't trying to avoid them. It was using them. Thank you for the power donation, Old Jack said as the Thunder's hull absorbed the energy webs. The raiders watched in horror as their weapons actually charged the human ship's capacitors. Humans designed our systems to use any available energy, even enemy weapons. The Thunder's main gun spoke again. 3 more raider ships disappeared in balls of flame. The remaining raiders began to show signs of panic, their formation breaking apart. Sir, one of Reed's officers called out. The Thunder's moving between all their shots. It's predicting their attack patterns. Old Jack's voice carried a hint of satisfaction. Human combat computers were designed to analyze enemy tactics. Your attack patterns are historically documented. Pirates haven't changed much in 200 years. The Thunder executed a maneuver that should have torn a ship its size apart. It spun 180 degrees while maintaining forward momentum, bringing its rear batteries to bear. The raiders found themselves caught in a crossfire between the main ship and its drone squadrons. How? The raider leader demanded. How is this possible? You're just one ship. Correction, Old Jack replied. I am a human warship. We specialized in being outnumbered. Observe. The Thunder's next attack wasn't just powerful, it was precise. Instead of destroying ships, it disabled them. Engines went dead. Weapons stopped responding. The raiders found themselves being systematically crippled by an opponent that wasn't just winning, but choosing how to win. Station 7's crew watched as the Thunder demonstrated why humanity had once been the most feared species in known space. It wasn't just the technology. It was the strategy, the experience, the understanding of combat that went beyond simple numbers. Warning, Old Jack broadcasted. My tactical analysis indicates your shield frequencies, your engine configurations, your weapon cycles. Humans spent centuries fighting enemies more advanced than you. We learned. We adapted. We survived. Another volley of railgun fire emphasized his point. The raiders' shields, finely tuned to stop physical projectiles, found themselves hit by phase-shifted rounds instead. The Thunder was adjusting its attacks faster than the raiders could adapt their defenses. Captain Reed, Old Jack communicated privately to the station. Be advised that 15 hostile vessels are now combat ineffective. 12 have been destroyed. The remaining 10 appear to be considering retreat. Recommend preparing holding cells for survivors. Reed could barely believe the numbers. In less than 30 minutes, one ancient human warship had decimated a fleet that could have conquered half the sector. The raiders' formation completely collapsed. Those ships still able to move began turning away from the station. Their confident advance had turned into a desperate retreat. But Old Jack wasn't finished. The Thunder's massive form moved with deadly purpose toward the fleeing raiders. Its weapons remained ready, its drones still in perfect formation. "Attention hostile vessels," the AI announced. "Your retreat is noted." However, human combat protocols are quite clear about pirates who threaten civilian populations. Would you like to hear them? The battle wasn't over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Relic was just getting started. The Thunder's hull bore new scars now, its armor glowing red in places from enemy fire. But like an old warrior who remembered every battle, every scar only seemed to make it more dangerous. Hull integrity at 76%, Old Jack reported. Acceptable combat damage. Initiating counterattack pattern Delta. The remaining raiders had grouped their 10 ships into a tight defensive formation. They'd finally realized their mistake. Fighting separately had made them easy targets. Now they coordinated their shields, creating an overlapping barrier of energy. "Your shield wall is impressive," Old Jack transmitted. "Humans encountered similar tactics during the colony wars. Would you like to see our solution?" The Thunder's drone squadron suddenly split apart, each small craft launching what looked like tiny missiles. The raiders laughed at first. Their shields could easily stop such small projectiles. Then the missiles split open, releasing clouds of metallic dust. "What is this?" the raider leader demanded as the dust settled on their shields. "Some kind of primitive weapon." "Correct," Old Jack replied. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need." The Thunder's next railgun volley struck the dust clouds. The metal particles instantly became superheated plasma, clinging to the raiders' shields and draining their power. It was an old human tactic, using the enemy's own defenses against them. In Station 7's command center, Captain Reed watched the tactical display with growing amazement. "Look at how it moves," he said to his officers. "Every action has a purpose. No wasted energy, no wasted shots." The Thunder demonstrated his point by executing a complex spiral maneuver. It looked like the ship was falling back, retreating from the raiders' combined fire. But Old Jack was actually setting up his next attack. "Sir," a station officer called out. "The Thunder's main gun. It's drawing massive power." The human warship's biggest weapon, running along its spine, began to glow with building energy. The raiders, focused on their apparent advantage, didn't notice the trap until too late. "Human Combat Protocol 47, Old Jack announced. When the enemy concentrates their forces, make them regret it." The main gun fired, but instead of a single shot, it released a spread of smaller projectiles, each one perfectly aimed at a weak point in the raiders' formation. Their clustered position, meant for defense, became a deadly trap. 3 more raider ships exploded, 2 more lost power and began drifting. The remaining 5 broke formation in panic, their coordinated defense shattered. "Your ships are faster than mine," Old Jack transmitted as the Thunder pursued the fleeing raiders. But humans learned long ago that speed means nothing without experience. The Thunder's drones demonstrated this by herding the raiders like sheepdogs dragging sheep. Each time a raider ship tried to escape, it found its path blocked by precisely placed drone squadrons or warning shots from the Thunder's secondary guns. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Old Jack reported to Station 7. "Rerouting power. Compensating with backup systems." Despite the damage it had taken, the Thunder's performance never wavered. The ship moved with the same deadly grace it had shown at the battle's start. Each hit it took was answered with devastating counterattacks. The raider leader, now desperate, tried one final gambit. His ship turned straight toward Station 7, weapons charge. "If we're dying today," he screamed over the comm, "we're taking them with us." "Negative," Old Jack replied simply. The Thunder's response was immediate and overwhelming. Every operational weapon on the human warship opened fire simultaneously, not to destroy, but to disable. The raider leader's ship found itself without engines, weapons, or shields in the space of 3 seconds. How? The raider leader whispered. How can one old ship do this? Because, Old Jack answered, this ship carries humanity's legacy. 200 years of warfare distilled into one purpose: protecting the innocent from those who would harm them. The Thunder's main gun began charging again, its energy reading climbing higher than ever before. Now, Old Jack announced, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer a final demonstration of human combat capabilities? The battle was reaching its end, but the legend of the Thunder was just beginning. 3 days after the battle, Station 7 hummed with activity of a different kind. Engineers and scientists from across the sector had arrived to witness something unprecedented. A functional human warship, the HNS Thunder, floated majestically in the main dock, its battle scars worn like medals of honor. Captain Reed stood in the observation room, watching as repair drones worked on the Thunder's hull. The ship that his people had once mocked as a relic had saved over 10,000 lives. Now, everyone wanted to learn its secrets. Old Jack, Reed called out, how are the repairs progressing? Hull integrity restored to 94%. The AI responded. Self-repair systems functioning within expected parameters. Estimated time to full combat readiness: 6 hours. The station's security teams had their hands full processing the captured raiders. Of the 37 ships that had attacked, 22 had been captured intact. Their crews now faced justice, their arrogance replaced by a newfound respect for ancient human technology. The Central Defense Fleet arrives tomorrow, Reed informed Old Jack. They're very interested in meeting you. Indeed. There was a hint of amusement in the AI's voice. I look forward to explaining human combat doctrine to them. They seem to have forgotten why the galaxy once feared humanity's warships. In the station's main conference room, footage of the battle played on large screens. Military analysts from a dozen worlds watched in awe as the Thunder demonstrated warfare as a form of art. Each maneuver, each tactical decision was being studied and documented. Look here, one analyst pointed at the screen. The Thunder didn't just win through superior firepower. It predicted enemy movements, used their own tactics against them. This wasn't just a ship fighting. This was centuries of human combat experience in action. News of the battle had spread quickly through nearby systems. The story of how one obsolete human warship had decimated a raider fleet was becoming legend, but more importantly, it was teaching the galaxy a valuable lesson about respecting the past. Captain Reed, Old Jack called through the station's comm system. I've completed my analysis of Station 7's defensive capabilities. With your permission, I'd like to share some recommendations for improvements. Reed smiled. Of course, though I suspect they'll be quite extensive. Indeed, humans had a saying, peace through strength. While warfare should never be sought, the ability to defend oneself is essential. The station's engineers had stopped laughing at the Thunder's primitive design. Now they studied every detail with reverence, learning how humans had approached problems differently. The thick hull wasn't just for protection. It contained layers of backup systems and repair mechanisms. The simple railguns could be modified in dozens of ways to overcome different types of shields. We've received requests from 17 different worlds, Reed informed Old Jack. They all want to establish defensive agreements. They want you to help protect their systems. A reasonable request, the AI responded. My primary directive remains unchanged. Protect civilian populations from those who would harm them. Humanity may be gone, but their commitment to defending the innocent lives on. In the following weeks, Station 7 was transformed. Under Old Jack's guidance, new defensive systems were installed. The Thunder's drone squadrons began training the station's security forces in combat tactics. What had once been an easy target for raiders was becoming a fortress. But more than the physical changes, the station's people had changed. They no longer dismissed the achievements of the past. The sight of the Thunder in their dock reminded them daily that progress wasn't always about having the newest technology. Sometimes it was about understanding fundamental truths that never changed. Old Jack, Reed asked one quiet evening, watching stars through the observation window. "Do you think humanity knew? When they built you, did they know you'd still be protecting people centuries later?" "Captain," the AI replied thoughtfully, "humans always planned for the future. They knew that someday the galaxy would need what they knew about defending the weak against the strong, about standing firm against impossible odds." The Thunder's running lights glowed softly in the darkness of space, a beacon of hope and strength. Humanity's greatest legacy, Old Jack concluded, wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their understanding that with great power comes the responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Relic had awakened, and with it, humanity's greatest lessons would never be forgotten again.